Hey there, welcome to week 12 of Beat the Odds. We got a big show, you guys. Now, last week, Mariah mocked me saying my outfit looked like a fisherman costume. Very hurtful. So today, we're embracing the pain, and let's go fishing for some winners. Beat the Odds starts right now.
From our Las Vegas studios, this is Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and powered by Sports Grid.
All right, welcome inside our Las Vegas fishing hole. I'm Dave, the Fish Slayer Hall. Do you feel guilty yet?
No, I won't feel guilty at all. Honestly, I'm glad that I inspired this look. I'm Mariah Janos. Have you actually ever caught anything?
I got something now.
Either of these?
Oh no, it's Jack.
Oh, you don't.
I don't want that.
No. Let's see if we can reel in something that's actually useful when it comes to this weekend. It's week 12 of the pro football season, and we've got another packed show for you. And maybe we'll put these fishing rods to good use. I don't know.
Let's find out. Coming up, Teddy is talking teams coming off brutal losses. Jack is talking about a feast. Clearly got turkey on his mind already. Plus our player prop showdown and best bets.
And I'll be hanging with Brandon Marshall again, talking about some of the brutal losses from week 11 and where those teams stand. Our friends from Sports Grid are here too.
Hey, Vegas, we're excited to beat the odds with you guys once again. And coming up, Joe Lisi and I will look at a letdown from Travis Kelce and KC and an awesome game from Denver's rookie, Bo Nix, and what it all means moving forward. So sit tight and we'll join you guys in just a bit. It's back out to the crew in Vegas.
All right, back with the boys. How we doing today, guys?
And there with that network anchor possibility.
Easy go.
Sure, your daughter's super proud of this
That
one.
was shot years ago.
Well,
right.
You're right, though. We are going to be fishing for some winners because you head in the middle of November. I mean, you've got to dig a little bit deeper, not just as easy as playing the good teams or playing where you think you have some value. And last week was an example of that.
Look at you with the positive segue.
Right,
Nice.
Trying to move it over.
Well done. Let's talk about some shockers and stunners from this past weekend. And certainly when it comes to stunners, how about some straight-up wins as underdogs? New Orleans beating Cleveland. New Orleans with the 2-0 start, and they lost 7 in a row. Now they won 2 in a row again. So perhaps some positive signs coming out of the bye week for New Orleans. Pittsburgh now 8-2 ATS, knocking off Baltimore last week. But, of course, this week, laying points, not catching them. Seattle beating San Fran. Desperation spot for Seattle. They kind of stole one. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And Indy knocking off Gangrene. Guess what? Aaron Rodgers found another way to lose. All outright winners as underdogs.
Yeah, this time of year, you got to try to figure out, can I play the better team, like we had Houston against Dallas on Monday night?
The big fish.
The big fish, exactly. The easy one, Detroit last week. I mean, let's play the better team, lay a bunch of points. Or are we having some of the things that happened there where we're going to have teams like Pittsburgh and people that are moving up the ranks? Are they going to have more of a regression as we head into the later part of November? So it's really a little bit tricky. You're having kind of feast or famine with the good teams.
So only one team last week had a win without covering the point spread. Of course, that happened to be my best bet. Thank you very much, Green Bay. Green Bay over Chicago, the only team in the whole league to win but no cover. Jordan Love, that end zone interception mattered, at least to the point spread.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how long a Hail Mary can beat you. I mean, now we're having things where they're covering but not winning. So it gets a little bit tricky in the latter part of November, but there are opportunities.
And, of course, shockers. What do we have? KC taking their first loss of the season against Buffalo. What I say last week, every team is going to lose a game or 2 or 3. KC lost 1. And, of course, Detroit, they've proven to be spot-proof so far. Doesn't matter coming off a divisional win, coming off this win, coming off that win. The Detroit 8-2 against the spread and 2-0 against the spread as double-digit chalk.
Kansas City losing, that's what we got going here. Now you've given up.
Here, I found something to catch your tears from losing your best bet, Teddy.
It's all right. There's been other good
holes.
information, even if the best bet loses. That segment 2 has been very valuable. So this, not valuable.
All right, fine. I'll take this off. All right. We done? We done with this segment?
I think we're good. Yeah,
Okay.
We'll get some more winners.
The word of the week from Vegas sports books right now, bitter. Mariah is at the Superbook Westgate Las Vegas to show us why.
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with Executive Director of Superbook Operations, John Murray. John, let's go back to last week before we get into this week's slate of games. How did you guys do overall here at the book?
We did very well. We had a lot of upsets, but we could have done much better if Chicago had beat Green Bay. And I'll never understand these teams. They get to where it's about a 50-yard field goal, 48-yard field goal, and they say, okay, we're good. We don't need to get any closer. Field goal ends up getting blocked. That costs us quite a bit.
That feels personal. You sound pretty upset.
Well, it happened the week before as well in the Denver-Kansas City game, which probably would have been our biggest win of the year in the NFL to date. They were close enough that time, and the field goal was blocked. It's not personal though, Mariah, but I am very bitter about it.
That's all right. That's all right. You're allowed to feel your feelings.
Okay.
It's valid here. But looking ahead to this weekend's matchups, a lot of good ones. Any ones that you've got your eye on?
I'd have to say the Monday night game, the Harbaugh Bowl with Baltimore going to Los Angeles, the brothers on opposite sidelines, and all of a sudden Los Angeles is playing very well. Baltimore, of course, one of the best teams in the league. Very interesting game.
And heading into the weekend, any early action that you're seeing?
I'm going to give you two division underdogs. Your New England team, they're playing okay right now, like the rookie quarterback, and also Tennessee. They're on the road at Houston, both about a touchdown underdog. They're both getting the money so far.
All right, John, thank you so much. Dave will send it back to you in studio.
Thank you, too. So coming off their first loss, will Kansas City finally awaken the beast? What about Chicago after that brutal blocked kick loss? Teddy and Jack will discuss next.
Before we head to break, with a dominating win over Jacksonville in Week 11, Detroit improved their record to 9-1 on the season. But when was the last time a Detroit team started 9-1 or better? The answer coming up next.
Beat the Odds is sponsored by Superbook Westgate Las Vegas and powered by Sports Grid.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, with a dominating win over Jacksonville in Week 11, Detroit improved their record to 9-1 on the season. But when was the last time a Detroit team started 9-1 or better? The answer, oh my God, 1934. It's been 90 years since Detroit started a season 9-1 or better. Detroit started 10-0 way back in 1934. Dave, what was that time like? I'm sure you remember those days like it was yesterday.
Funny. Yeah.
All right, moving on. It's time to welcome in our champ, Brandon Marshall. Brandon, last week we talked about two major AFC showdowns. Buffalo and Pittsburgh prevailed. What did those games tell you about Baltimore and Kansas City? Was there any kind of exposure there?
So, in my opinion, it told me nothing, especially
Really?
the Buffalo game. It told me nothing. Josh Allen and Buffalo, they're 4-1 against Kansas City in the regular season, but they're winless in the postseason. So Buffalo has always been a good regular season team, but they've always fallen short when it came to, crunch time. So, I'm not really putting too much stock in that loss for KC. They're supposed to lose. They're going to lose at some point anyway. That was a good game to face some adversity, but that didn't really tell me much. Now, on Baltimore's side, something's up with Justin Tucker.
Yeah.
He missed 2 field goals. They would have won the ball game. So Lamar Jackson is 2-5 against Pittsburgh. So, he struggled. It's a division game, tough game. So at the end of the day, I'm not putting too much stock in either one of these football games because tough games, they're very familiar with each other. And at the end of the day, they can go either way, right? So I'm not really putting too much stock in it.
And we heard Josh Allen make that exact point in his postgame. He was like, the playoffs are what matters, and that's where we seem to struggle. But another team that struggled, San Francisco, that was brutal against Seattle down the stretch there all season. We've said, they're injured, but they'll be there in the end. They'll figure it out. Does that narrative change now?
I'm still a believer.
Okay.
I'm still a believer for some reason. Now, I'm not really sure, am I being delusional or whatever the case may be, because they're not really showing it. Like what I'm seeing on the field, right, the pure eye test, I'm not really seeing it, but it's still San Francisco. They still have a ton of weapons, a good defense, a good head coach, a good quarterback, so they can be there in the end. But what's happening right now, and they're giving up so many points at the end of the halves, it's mind-boggling. Their defense is not the same. The defense has to get back on track for them to be able to try to make another run like they did, in previous years.
Right.
But right now it's not looking ugly, but I'm still a believer.
All right, still a believer. All right, we'll see how it all goes down the stretch there. Brandon, thank you so much. All right, clearly Jack already has Thanksgiving on his mind, per usual. He's talking about a feast, so take it away, you turkey.
I had Thanksgiving on my mind starting in January. Brandon points out a really good point, though. When you're looking at teams, sometimes you get enamored, especially in November, looking at the names on the front of the jersey. San Francisco, you just expect more. It's about dissecting some of the information on how can we ride those good teams like we talked about last week with Detroit and Minnesota, laying numbers and getting there, versus who's going to regress now that we're into the middle of November. So let's look at a couple of spots. We have double-digit favorites that have done really well this year so far. 5-0 against the spread, 5-0 obviously straight up, and covering by about 16 points a game. So double-digit favorites, really, really strong this year. But look at some of those teams. You're looking at teams with really good offenses, either getting teams that turn the ball over a bunch or just that can't keep up from a scoring perspective, namely Detroit at least a couple of those times. This week, don't expect that to continue. We talked last week about getting lazy. Don't get lazy and say, hey, well, double digit. Let's go ahead and ride that on out. Those numbers will even out. Oh, exactly. Well, that's what I'm doing. That's the inside voice talking to me. Hey, let's just ride it out and go to the bar. So, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and look a little deeper, and there's going to be some value with some of these bad teams, especially this week. So we look at a couple of different spots this week.
Carolina.
Listen, nobody wants to go up and play horrible teams, but we're going to have to if we're going to make money. We're looking at motivation. When you talk about Kansas City specifically and Washington versus Dallas, you're talking about a couple of teams that are going to try to make a run in the playoffs, be resting players, shortening the game. So look for value to come in those underdogs. You also have a Kansas City team not scoring a ton of points, not winning by large numbers. Expect Carolina to stay within that number this week. Dallas, same type of deal. You're going to get better play out of their quarterback position the more starts he gets. I'm not expecting him to win, but covering number against a team that doesn't win by a bunch of points, that's a good spot as we head into late November.
We've touched a couple times on Chicago and some of the brutal losses, and they just had another one last weekend, Ted.
They sure did. When you talk about how teams respond off agonizing losses, there was a good handful last weekend. And Chicago, of course, had a hangover for 2 weeks after losing to Washington last week. Well, blocked field goal cost them the victory against Green Bay, a game they really wanted. We'll see how they respond here or if Chicago continues to slide. Baltimore missed field goals, missed 2-point conversions. We heard Brandon Marshall talking about Tucker's kicking issues. Now Baltimore coming off a loss. They've been real good off a loss in recent seasons. We've got Cincinnati. Boy, Cincy has found a way to lose all kinds of ways this season. Tough, brutal losses. Another one last week in L.A. The missed field goals and bad defense in the final drive. We had Gang Green, who didn't go for too early and then found a way to lose by 1 to Indy. Their defense fell apart in that game. And, of course, San Fran, the third blown fourth-quarter lead in 4 games against NFC West foes. We'll see if any of those teams can bounce back this week.
Last place. Nobody saw that coming, right?
Not good. Teams typically resilient in a lot of that list, but also with some flaws. So hard to get back on track sometimes in November.
Kind of like you.
You're right. I'm living it every day. Yeah.
Who am I to talk? I'm dressed like an idiot today. All right, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels getting all the hype. But is Bo Nix going to steal the rookie quarterback title? Perhaps. Here's Sports Grid with more.
Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here, taking a look at some of the Sunday standouts. And, man, rookie quarterback Bo Nix for Denver. Phenomenal against Atlanta, Joe. I mean, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 307 passing yards. Coming along in this Sean Payton offense.
He really is, Kev. A couple of weeks ago, we saw him abuse the New Orleans defense on the ground, 76 total yards, abused it in terms of the RPO game. And this past weekend, we saw him 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, multiple throws in terms of the passing tree against Atlanta. I don't think it continues. He's starting to develop confidence, and they're going up against a Las Vegas team this coming weekend that has lost 6 straight and allowed Tua to rip off 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bo Nix is a huge performer this coming weekend.
He's been awesome. He is creeping into the offensive rookie of the year race. I am not sure this still results in a playoff berth. That schedule will pick up with a little bit more difficulty down the back stretch, but I think Denver has to be really pleased with what they have right now through 11 games. One team who could not be happier, Detroit. I mean, I think they just scored again in this game against Jacksonville, and one of the standouts was Jamison Williams. We expect great games from Gibbs from Amon-Ra. Williams can be a little more up and down. This week up, 4 grabs, $124, and a score.
He is that home run hitter. I mean, you want to talk about taking the top off of an opposing secondary. Yeah. Jamison Williams is that type of player. Did it in college, is doing it in the NFL. The 2-game suspension, he comes back. And I feel like Dan Campbell was trying to give Jared Goff the Heisman. I felt like I was watching a Big 12 game. He was throwing up plus 35. Give him the Heisman, baby, with only 5 incompletions.
It was very reminiscent of some of those, Jaden Daniels games back in Baton Rouge. I got to say it. Man, you talk about Williams hitting home runs. In Miami, they have one of those guys themselves. And no, I'm not talking about Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Devon Achane, it is who he has been since he stepped into this league for Miami, and he did it again with 100 total yards in the game and a score. If Miami's going to stay good like this, they need Achane to keep rolling.
Absolutely, and it should continue against New England that allowed Kyren Williams to rip off 86 yards on the ground. Devon Achane, a home run hitter.
Don't look now, Miami all of a sudden actually in the AFC wildcard race, something we'll keep our eye on throughout.
You're watching Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and powered by Sports Grid.
All right, welcome back to Las Vegas, home of Allegiant Stadium and Beat the Odds. Scan that QR code. It is our website, beattheoddstv.com. Now let's get smarter. Let's head back to the guys from Sports Grid.
Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here. We're taking a look at some of the players that were a little bit disappointing this past weekend, Joe. And I think for San Francisco as a whole, that description would fit. 500 coming off of a spot in the big game, as dominant as they were last season. It's not been that same type of year, and you kind of point towards their quarterback in Brock Purdy, who once again, without having that stacked deck, no Kittle in the game, we know Ayuk's done for the season. Purdy did not have the goods. 158 yards, throws a costly interception. This team is still struggling, and the quarterback's a reason why.
Absolutely, Kevin. Not the same continuity that we saw in terms of the first matchup in Seattle. George Kittle did have 2 touchdown receptions. Brock Purdy lit that defense up over the top. Christian McCaffrey over the weekend, very inconsistent in the rushing attack. Great defensive game plan by Mike McDonald, and the Seattle team forced Brock Purdy to work down the field. And, he is struggling with his reads and progressions. Not going to stop. I believe Brock Purdy, very inconsistent this year. The injuries have hurt.
And here's the thing with Brock. He has some underlying numbers that are fantastic. They are. But I think when you're considering this is someone who's hoping to cash in a major way this offseason and become maybe the new highest paid quarterback in football, you can't have stuff like this, and you can't have letdowns like this at home. Got to have a type of game. We see how tight that divisional race is, and now you look at the remaining schedule. I mean, next week, they go to Green Bay. And that is going to put this team up against it. There's a little more leeway in Kansas City. Their first loss of the season this past weekend to Buffalo. It happens. What I did not see happening was Travis Kelce no-showing the game. Again, this season for KC, man, has just been an odd one, Joe, and it has not inspired confidence that they're going to just turn it on when the postseason begins.
I agree, Kevin. Travis Kelce was a non-factor this past weekend against Buffalo. Credit Sean McDermott and that Buffalo defense for limiting Travis Kelce. We saw other playmakers step up. Xavier Worthy, a huge first half, but he was non-existent as well in the second half. They might get going this week with Carolina coming off a bye.
Can someone tell Xavier Worthy he's not in college anymore? I mean, 1 foot Charlie, this guy. He's got to get it figured out. We'll keep our eye on it, no doubt, with you on Sports Grid.
Look, neither can open up a jar of jelly, but no matter, it's Teddy against Jack battling in our player prop showdown. Today, the boys are going to debate Justin Jefferson.
Sure. Let's talk Justin Jefferson. I've got him under 81.5 receiving yards this week. Don't be fooled. That Minnesota offense has not been the same. We spent all this time talking about the star players. Left tackle Christian Darrisaw got hurt. They scored 23 or less in each of the last 4 games. The offense is not as good. Jefferson's below his season average per catch, yards per catch, in all 5 previous road games this year. Chicago's defense is playing better, man. They'd held 3 of their last 4 opponents to 20 points or less. And Soldier Field late November, yeah, we're expecting conditions that are not great for receivers to go over the number. Under.
Yeah, I think we're going over here. I mean, I think there's a lot of variance with Jefferson. Like a lot of the sports rig guys pointed out, I mean, we have players that sometimes, Kelsey last week, that was doing really well, and then all of a sudden he's not doing well. It will be a main focus to get Jefferson back involved in the offense, and extending the field. Play action is how you get Chicago out of their game plan, get the lead. I think this is a desperation side, especially that side of the ball for Minnesota's offense. Look for Jefferson to be a big part of that. We're going over the 81.5.
He's one of those guys, he catches a 10-yard slant and he's gone for 80 yards.
So, yeah, I think we need one big play.
All right. Well, can Baker Mayfield stay hot? Can Tennessee hang with Houston? They have their best bets next. All right, welcome back to Beat the Odds. So I've been working on a cool name for this last block. You know, it's best bets. We need something big, something bold. So how about the Block of Champions?
I like it. I like it. But then why is Jack here?
The fisherman and his crew.
Oh, honestly, that's kind of better.
Does that make you
We're like a boy band.
Why not?
Or, no, you would be Ginger.
Ginger. Ooh, iconic. Yes. Okay, I love a rebrand. So with this rebrand, Teddy, start us off strong.
Sure, let's talk.
He's the
about
professor.
Best bets
yes,
for this
100%.
week. I'll be the professor and talk about best bets, and I'm going to take Tennessee plus the points. More than a touchdown at Houston. Look, Houston's not winning games by margin. 12 of their last 15 victories by a TD or less. Houston off 2 huge games, the Sunday night blown lead against Detroit, and then the Monday night football against Dallas. This is not a huge game for Houston. Tennessee, 1-9 against the spread. They have no betting bandwagon, which means you're getting more value. And Tennessee certainly battle-tested 4 of their last 5 opponents, 7-3 or better.
I like it. Also, sorry, Yes Network viewers, anybody playing the G-Men is my lock of the week. So we're going to take Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. Yeah, I don't believe in anything going on at quarterback or, frankly, offensively with what the G-Men are doing. Danny DeVito's brother or cousin or whatever is not the answer. So I think they've got major problems scoring the football, and Tampa Bay averaging 28 points a game. Look for them to continue scoring with Mayfield, who's having a great year. Tampa minus the points at New York.
You're not a believer in DeVito.
No, I love the sandwiches, but no.
Who wants to go fishing now? I've got the gear.
I did it at the beginning of the show. Now we're going to go eat
I'll
sub
watch.
instead.
I'll supervise.
Lake meat around the corner.